الله بالخير. طرق الحرير الجديدة، حاضر العالم ومستقبله، مستند للمؤرخ بيتر فرانكوبان يشرح كيف أن الموارد الطبيعية لطالما لعبت دورا رئيسيا في تشكيل العالم. اليوم مركز الثقل الاقتصادي والسياسي العالمي بدأ بالتحول من الغرب إلى الشرق، من منطقة المحيط الأطلسي إلى منطقة المحيط الهادئ. أدركت الصين أن الاستثمارات الاقتصادية تخلق مزايا سياسية. كيف تغير الجغرافيا السياسية والموارد الطبيعية وجه العالم؟ هل بات التوجه شرقا خيارا ملحا أمام الدول النامية؟ متى تستعيد آسيا المركز الريادي الاقتصادي الذي احتلته قبل الثورة الصناعية في الغرب؟ أين أصبح مركز القرار في عالمنا اليوم؟ وما هو دور إيران والهند وباكستان وأفغانستان والصين وروسيا في ممرات النقل الدولية؟ نرحب بكم ونرى ونسمع أكثر من ضيفنا الدبلوماسي الهندي السابق بدراكومار في البعد الأقرب. هذه الميادين وأنا زينب صفار، خليكم ويانا. Badраkumar, former Indian diplomat, career diplomat in the Indian Foreign Service for 3 decades, was assigned on the territories of the former Soviet Union, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. Other overseas postings included South Korea, Sri Lanka, Germany, and Turkey. Writes mainly on Indian foreign policy and the affairs of the Middle East, Eurasia, Central Asia, South Asia, and the Asia Pacific. Your Excellency Badраkumар, salam and welcome to الميادين. This is the proximate aspect, and I'm Zainab Al-Safar. So good to have you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor and it's my pleasure.
Our pleasure too, sir. Well, one reason for the optimism across the heart of Asia is the immense natural resources of the Asian region, writes the famous Oxford historian Peter Frankopan in his recent book, The New Silk Roads, the Present and Future of the World, which is our reference for today. So the world is changing, with the global economy center of gravity shifting from the Atlantic region to the Pacific region. Clearly, India understands the real agenda behind Washington and Brussels' geopolitical struggle with Russia today. Principally, India is looking in all directions for partnerships. Is the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi willing to break fresh ground in foreign policy? And what would be the repercussions and implications both internally and externally, sir?
This is the crux of the matter. We are living in a very transformative period, and there are many variables in the situation, and therefore it's unwise to make predictions about what will be the outcome of the churnings that we see here. Mm-hmm. But broadly, I tend to agree with what you have said, that there is a certain shift in the locus of world politics towards the Asian region. And I think I attribute it primarily to the fact that the economies of the Asian region have shown in the recent years a very high degree of dynamism and growth. India, for example, is one of the fastest growing economies in the world today.
Sure.
It's already the fifth biggest economy, and if it grows at this pace for the next decade or so, it could as well be the third biggest economy in the world. So China's case, we all know it's a very famous story of an extraordinary growth trajectory over the last 20 to 25 years. And the expectation is that it could surge and be the number one economic power in the world, which means, the number one and the number three would be coming from the Asian region. And that explains, in fact, the anxiety in the West, the aspirations and hope in the East, in Asia, about the shape of things to come.
Yes, sir. The conflict in Ukraine is quintessentially a proxy war that the U.S. has imposed on Russia to weaken Russia. In the prevailing geopolitical conditions, Moscow has prioritized Asian countries for partnership, like India, for example. Perhaps, as experts note, that India-Russia relationship is among the steadiest in global relations, and the partnership is drawing so much attention today, not because it has changed, but because it has not. Is the Modi government today, sir, in the process of expanding and deepening a comprehensive strategic partnership between India and Russia, regardless of the fluctuations of international politics?
Yes, that's very much true. Our foreign minister said also recently much the same thing, that the India-Russia relationship is in the headlines because it is a relationship which has been stable and has withstood the vicissitudes of time. And it has been a very, on the one hand, a very pragmatic relationship. On the other hand, it's a very strategic relationship. And in the context in which I was placing the present day happenings in the world, the shift in the locus of power, Russia is also increasingly pivoting towards the Asian region. And this trend we can expect in the recent foreign policy strategy of the Russian Federation. This comes out very clearly. The Asian partnerships have been prioritized in the Russian foreign policy. So you see, the fact of the matter is that Russia is a country with immense resources. India is a very huge market, and China is also a very huge market. And between China and India, there is a very substantial segment of the world population. So you see the kind of unity that can emerge between the three countries, India, China, and Russia, in the Asian region. This could totally transform, my personal view, I'm saying, could be totally transform the contemporary world history and politics.
Sure.
I think the struggle going on in Eurasia to suppress Russia is directly linked to this. There is no question about it. It's labeled as Ukraine war, but what the United States is doing is to suppress Russia and to erase Russia from the landscape, world landscape, as a major power. BRICS, the organization which brings together India, Russia, and China, they are talking about a democratized world order. And the conflict in Ukraine has brought to the fore the imperatives of multipolarity or multilateralism, a democratized world order, um, strategic autonomy of all countries, big or small, and the right and the privileges of each country, sovereign country, to pursue its own path of development.
In trying to work out how to prepare for the future, India developed an array of plans such as the Act East policy, the Trilateral Highway Project, the Go West strategy, and the Neighborhood First plan. As a diplomat, sir, who worked extensively in the region, might you tell us, how does India decipher, interpret, and define its foreign relations to better serve its economy and security?
The priority is definitely India's development, because we are very much interested to see that the present trajectory of development of the Indian economy should continue for at least another 10 to 15 years. And this is going to be a very crucial period for India's development and history. Mm-hmm. So the Indian priority is quite obviously to sequester our strategic autonomy, our independent foreign policy, our capacity to take independent decisions, mm-hmm. and to steer them through in a way that is conducive for national development. Mm-hmm. That is undoubtedly the first priority. And naturally, it cannot be a belligerent foreign policy. It is a foreign policy, therefore, which is rooted in world peace and coexistence. And that is the reason why we cannot be party to the kind of polarization that the Western powers are imposing on the world, not in Asia, but all over the global. And you know, the Indian perspective is actually got very wide international acceptance also, as is evident from the fact that the global South, on the whole, has refused to be party to this kind of polarization and bloc mentality and Cold War ethos that are being injected. Even in the Asian theater, you would find that, you know, the Indo-Pacific strategy of the United States has very few takers. No country is really interested in the region other than a couple of, you can say, Western powers in the Asian region, Japan and Australia. No countries, ASEAN countries, you know, they are all interested in having a relationship with China. They are stakeholders in regional security and peace. And China is a driver of growth for the Asian countries.
The BRICS countries also encourage transactions among themselves in local currencies and have already begun to do so. Is the global dollarization really heading towards weakness and collapse, or is this difficult and not in your economic agenda and financial priorities, sir?
It will take time. It's a struggle. It's an uphill struggle. But I am of the view, definitely, that the forces of history will ultimately prevail.
Right.
Because when countries such as India, Turkey, South Africa,
China and Russia, true.
Yeah, when they grow at this pace, Saudi Arabia, when they grow at this pace, naturally,
Iran too, of course, yes.
Their space will have to be considered. And your region itself, in fact, you know, I have been an observer of your region for a long time. Now, we must acknowledge that there is a profound wind of change sweeping over your region.
Right.
It is no longer willing to take dictates or dominance from external powers.
Right.
It is setting its own goals, and it is working out its own destiny on its own terms, in line with its own traditions and history.
Sure. In light and against the backdrop of the current developments, so to say, in the political stage in the region, what is the prospect of the relationship between India and Pakistan, please?
Well, it's a complicated relationship because it has a difficult history. It is a backlog of history, you know, the differences and disputes between the two countries. It's all very well known. I won't get into the details of it. But it is now from the Indian point of view, it is narrowed down to one point agenda in terms of the bilateral relationship with Pakistan. That the government, present-day government, has taken a decision that it will enter into dialogue and talks with Pakistan only if there is a total termination of terrorism which emanates from Pakistan. Not necessarily supported by Pakistan, but which emanates from Pakistan. So something has to be done about that. That is the one condition that the government of India has laid down. As of now, we do not have that confidence that that point has been reached or is likely to be reached because incidents are still taking place, and that's a fact. It's in the recent past also there have been two major incidents that took place. So you see, the dialogue
But why can't India read the goodwill gestures from the Pakistani side? For example, what happened with the opening of the Kartarpur corridor for the Sikh pilgrims to travel back and forth and visit their holy shrines and sites?
We have actually, you may not be aware that, that our Prime Minister even made a present surprise to the then Pakistani Prime Minister, Nawaz Sharif, to drop by at his, without much advance notice or anything like that, to drop by at his house, in his family house in Lahore, on a personal goodwill mission. So I am, as a diplomat, I have dealt with Pakistan for most of my career. I spent well over a decade on the Pakistan desk. I have lived in that country. I have worked in the embassy there. So the relationship is on the one side. As I mentioned, it's a one-point block, and if there is a political will, dialogue can resume.
Yes. Now, allow me to ask you, so the Taliban agreed with China and Pakistan to extend the Belt and Road Initiative to Afghanistan. Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang and his Pakistani counterpart, Mr. Bhutto Zardari, met in Islamabad recently and pledged to work together on Afghanistan reconstruction process, including taking the $60 billion the China-Pakistan economic corridor to Taliban-ruled nation. How challenging is this to India today?
You see, India's reservations over the CPEC, that is the China-Pakistan economic corridor, is very, very easy to explain, in the sense that there is a disputed area, and that problem, that region is part of this CPEC. And so these Chinese-aided projects are going to be implemented in regions which India considers to be its territory. So India has reservations about it. Now, we must separate this from India's outlook on the BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. I have my personal views about it, but since you asked me to explain it from the Indian perspective, I'm trying to do that. India has reservations about the Belt and Road Initiative. This other problem apart, that the CPEC is passing through territories which India regards as its territory. That is because India feels that its decision making, its degree of transparency, and the strong likelihood that in the present structure it can lead to debts for countries, and indebted economies can be an international problem. Sri Lanka, for example, as we see.
In the censor, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval visited Tehran on May 1st, where he held discussions with the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi on growing India-Iran economic relations, as well as the Chabahar project and other topics. For Central Asian countries, the Iranian port of Chabahar is going to serve as a gateway to the high seas. If this is accomplished, Iran's geopolitical weight, of course, will rise meaningfully. How? How so? Will transit become Iran's new top revenue generator, in your opinion? And what is Iran's role in the international transport corridors?
Well, Iran, by its geographical position and its geostrategy, is a very crucial hub in the kind of regional connectivity that is taking place in our region. You have explained it beautifully. Chabahar has its own significance in terms of linking South Asia with Central Asia, with Afghanistan and so on. And then the international corridor is of a much bigger dimension because it spans 2-3 continents altogether, Asia, Eurasia, and it is a passage towards Europe also. So the international corridor is of a much bigger dimension. But let's not also overlook that there are other processes taking place in connectivity. India has a route to Russia, which is called the maritime route, what connects the eastern seaboard of India, that is Chennai city, with Vladivostok. And Russia is developing its subarctic route called the Northern Sea Route. So that can become, once that passage through that route becomes feasible, even in winter time, it becomes feasible and around the year. It's going to be probably the most economical route, for Asian countries on the whole, including China.
Right.
And Chabahar, because of the the difficulties in the India-Pakistan relationship, the Chabahar route is the only viable route for India available for a foreseeable future.
How do you read the current political scene vis-à-vis the current elections taking place in Turkey today?
Erdogan is a man of history. There is no doubt about it. He has transformed Turkey's identity. He has put his stamp on modern Turkey, definitely. And his foreign policy initiatives have been very creative. And he has positioned Turkey, in fact, in an optimal position in these times of transition that is going on. And personally, I hope that he returns to power because the region and the world requires statesmen like him.
Let's wait and see. Definitely, the Indian punchline may intentionally provoke at times, yet it reflects a humanist markings against the backdrop of the Asian century, as you say, sir. Career diplomat MK Bedrakoumar, thank you very much for sharing your thorough perspective. Always interesting talking to you, sir.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you. And I hope I'll get another opportunity to have a conversation with you. Thank you.
Huge pleasure to have you. You're most welcome, sir.
Wish you all success. Thank you.
Thank you. لعل الوعي البصير والقوي بعالم جديد متماسك ومتداخل ساعد في دفع الخطط التي ستستفيد من الأنماط المتغيرة للقوة الاقتصادية والسياسية للمستقبل وتسريعها. ومن أهم هذه المبادرات مبادرة الحزام والطريق أو السياسة الاقتصادية والخارجية المميزة للرئيس الصيني تشي، والتي تستخدم طرق الحرير القديمة ونجاحها كنسيج للخطط الصينية طويلة الأجل للمستقبل. في بداية القرن العشرين تنافست الإمبراطوريتان البريطانية والروسية سياسيا ودبلوماسيا وعسكريا على المركز والهيمنة في قلب آسيا. اليوم هنالك سلسلة من الألعاب الكبرى تدور حول التنافس على النفوذ والطاقة والموارد الطبيعية والغذاء والماء والهواء النظيف والموقع الاستراتيجي وحتى البيانات. وقطعا سيكون للنتائج تأثير عميق على العالم الذي نعيش فيه في العقود المقبلة. فهل مع تحول مركز ثقل الاقتصاد العالمي من منطقة المحيط الأطلسي إلى منطقة المحيط الهادئ وسيطرة هذه البقعة الشاسعة والمتنوعة ستجلب الهدوء والتكامل في العلاقات متعددة الأقطاب، وبالتالي الازدهار بعيداً عن المنطقة الأطلسية ونزعتها الاستئثارية المتغطرسة والحربية الجشعة؟ من كل الميادين، سلاماً وتحية، في أمان الله.